Hey guys, it's Joel Williams and Chase Elleby with Williams Elleby coming to you today with video number 31 out of our video series of 52 weeks of personal injury. Today our video is coming by special request from Devarian, who made a comment on week 27's video on how to hire a bad lawyer, and Devarian asked if we could do a video on emotional distress and loss of earning capacity. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's talk about damages as it relates to emotional distress and loss of earning capacity.
Right, so that kind of falls into the pain and suffering aspect of damages. So typically, just kind of in the broad stroke, you've got your economic damages, things that you can, like I like to say, blackboard, like medical expenses, lost wages, things like that. We actually have a specific number, or non-economic damages, or intangible damages, right? Things that you can't really put an actual number on. That is really kind of where a lot of the tug with most of our cases falls in, right? We think the non-economic or the intangible damages are usually worth more than, say, an insurance company thinks they're worth. So that's really where the sort of emotional distress and loss of earning capacity falls into that category of non-economic damages.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the loss of earning capacity and lost wages, at least as they're handled in the state of Georgia, are different. Lost wages are some of those numbers that Chase was talking about that you can blackboard. Like, we know you missed 3 months of work, you made $3,000 a month at work, you just do the math. It's pretty easy to do, right?
Right.
Emotional distress is associated with future lost earning capacity or lost earning capacity is a different category of damages under pain and suffering, as Chase said, and it's because, at least in Georgia, we recognize that there is anxiety and stress and suffering that goes along with the thought process of not being able to work and not being able to provide for your family, which is a really big deal when, if, for example, you're the primary breadwinner in your family, and all of a sudden you can't work and pay your bills. That's a huge deal. But you can't blackboard that number. It's one of those intangibles that you have to be able to convey to the jury in a manner that will allow them to assign a value to it.
Right, and you can also, if we get pretty far into the weeds, you can hire economists as experts to come in and say, John Doe, would have earned X amount of dollars based on the education, training, and background that person had, their longevity of life. So you can kind of project out future, lost earnings and lost ability to earn a living if you really need to get down to it. But it would still fall under that, intangible, hard to kind of put a specific number on it, because for every expert us as the plaintiffs have, the defendants will have an expert to say why, the earnings, whatever they might be, would be less. And I think another important thing kind of in the emotional distress category that's important to talk about is typically in Georgia, and I think there's a handful of exceptions, and I'm not going to get too far into the legal aspect of it, but typically in order to have emotional pain and suffering, you also have to have some sort of physical injury to go along with that, right? We get a lot of calls and things like that. Like a good example is, say, a robbery. Someone gets robbed. They're not injured. They didn't get hurt. They didn't get punched. Nothing like that. But it's clearly a traumatic experience, right? So there's fear, shock, fright, anxiety that's all associated with that. But generally, because there's no physical injury associated with that, mental or emotional distress, there really isn't a cause of action or a claim in that type of situation.
Yeah, and I think it's the last thing that we're going to say about this is I think it's really important to understand that when you're talking about emotional distress as it relates to lost earning capacity, these laws are going to be very different in each state.
Right.
So we're in Georgia. We're just talking about Georgia. So if you're in a different state, you really need to check on what your laws say about whether they handle lost wages and lost earning capacity differently. Because in Georgia, lost wages are those blackboard numbers. Lost earning capacity and the emotional anguish that goes along with that are those intangible or general damages that you can't blackboard up, but a jury would ultimately have to assign a value to it in order to decide what to award you in any verdict if your case were to go to trial. Yeah. So really that's about it for the talking about emotional distress and loss of earning capacity. Just remember that at least in the state of Georgia, lost wages and lost earning and diminished capacity to labor is actually the legal term. or lost earning capacity are two totally different things, and there should be a separate award for each. But if this video has been helpful to you, we would appreciate you subscribing to our channel or giving us a thumbs up on the video below. Otherwise, we will see you next week for video number 32 out of our video series of 52 weeks of personal injury.